It has come to my attention that many people misunderstood Noah's notes last week in the episode for Sinister from 2012, and I would like to come on this podcast to defend myself. Firstly, the movie's not a 6 out of 10. That was an egregious typo, which I did correct in episode.
That's right. What did you end up giving it?
I think an 8. I'm pretty sure I ranked that one an 8.
Now,
which is still not as like super high, but
sure.
And you know,
what was it that we misunderstood?
Well, Nina told a story making it seem like I thought that there was actually no way for snakes to enter a house.
Oh, yeah.
I know snakes can get into houses. It was very clearly a joke when Nina and I were talking about it. I was just like, no, Nina, that's silly. Snakes aren't allowed to go in houses. But then Nina told it straight, like I'm like, no, Nina, that's silly of you. Snakes aren't permitted in houses.
It's illegal. People can't do that.
So I wanted to clarify that one, but also just to elaborate on my I didn't care for the family thing, because y'all had a lot of great points. What I had meant was there were like 3 different family lines for me to grasp onto to like care about someone's story. Like, you know, like there was his connection with the daughter. They had like a cool thing going on. You can draw on your walls, just nowhere else. Hey, we're buddies type, like, hey, fist bump type attitude. You know, like they had something happening. The son was a non-entity who was just kind of rude. And the wife, like, their marriage is falling apart. You know, like him trying to connect with his son who clearly has a wall could have been nice. Something with the wife about just so you know, if this book flops, I'm leaving you. And he's like, yes, that's a great idea. Smiley face. Like, you know,
yeah,
a couple of those things just didn't land for me. I would have liked if even like circumstantially we had gotten some better stuff. Like if the son had just been less aggressively rude, I would have cared more when he had his weird like sleepwalking incident where I'm like, oh no. But instead I'm like, hey, it's the annoying kid again.
Yeah,
I assumed he was just fucking with him.
He could be as aggressively rude as he is, as long as he got like something else, just so his entire character was more than just problem child.
Yeah, you know, just like a couple little things like that.
Okay, yeah.
So that was it. You guys, the only thing that I was truly misrepresented in was that 6 out of 10, which once again was my fault.
Sure.
And the snake thing, which was my fault.
Nina can't tell a story. That's all we've learned today.
I'll just keep my mouth shut for this one.
Of course, it's Nina's fault.
I have nothing good to say. We all know this. All right.
I hate things.
I hate stuff
7
and
p.m.
things.
on March 31st, and you know what that means.
What's it mean?
Time to purge, baby.
It's purging time.
Purge time.
Oh, does
Purging time.
Does Purge happen on March 31st?
Yeah, and this movie takes place this year, even.
Yes,
Yeah.
we did notice that.
Man,
you gotta do the intro though.
They really just said "fuck you" to April Fools, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're like, that's not a holiday anymore. Instead, you can kill people that try to April Fools you.
Welcome back to Casual Obsession, the horror movie podcast where we talk about horror movies. I am your host, Noah, today, along with the other hosts, Nina.
Hi, I'm Nina.
Emma.
Hi, I'm Emma.
And Jeff.
Hello.
And of course, today, in this terrible aftermath of the Purge happening just a scant 4 months ago, we decided to talk about the Purge.
Yes.
Which happened this year.
Purge?
Well, I mean, you know how the Purge is. I went out and I can't get in trouble for it, of course, because it was legal. But I smoked a doobie on the Purge. Don't tell the cops.
And then drove a
Oh,
forklift
man.
without a permit.
Whoa, hey, I could get in trouble for that. You don't want me to get in trouble with the forklifters union.
All
The
crimes legal.
forklifters
You can
union
do
are
it.
allowed to. Well, forklifters union are allowed to purge too. They can
that's
take
true.
retaliation.
That's what I'm worried about.
Oh, no.
We were talking, this movie, Purge, released in 2013, says that the Purge in the movie is in the year 2022.
Which is not even 9 years after the movie is released. That is
Honestly,
a very, very near future to set a movie.
And they
up.
they also established in the opening shots that like it's been going for like 5 years at this point because they show us clips as early as like 2017, 2016 even.
Honestly, if Trump won in 2020, I could see us being there.
I literally said that while we were watching the movie. Like when it first started, I turned to Noah and I said that exact thing.
That's
Oh my
something,
God.
before watching it, I was talking to Becca about it, and I was like, this movie came out in 2013. This means that it got, like, written and put together over the course of probably 2011 and 2012. The tail end of Obama's first term.
Yeah.
Do you really think it took 2 years to write this movie?
Well, it may have taken a significant length of time for the script to get picked up. I don't know. But, like, that's the political climate that this movie got released into.
Right. That is interesting to think about.
Yeah.
I think you started seeing a lot more far-right ideology start to pop up around then.
Yeah.
In
It's
response
interesting.
to a black president.
Yeah, I know.
Especially the second term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know
So it
all the
doesn't
shit that I was
entirely
hearing as early as
surprise me.
2007, but, like, I was a child at the
I
time,
think-
so...
I wish this is going to be something that, I think is going to affect my read on this movie because I think that I'm actually going to end up giving it more credit than perhaps it's due for certain things because I feel like it almost predicted certain aspects of like we're going to be, this is just a trigger warning for this episode. I feel like we're going to be discussing a lot of right-wing like activity. So just so you guys know, but I feel like this did kind of predict in some ways some of the ways that like organizations like the Proud Boys that kind of started forming later on in the 2010s and early 2020s, like how the kind of language that they use, the kind of activity they promote very accurately in a way that like if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't look at some of the characters in this movie and think, yeah, this is fairly accurate.
Yeah.
I think if I were to watch this in 2012, I'd be like, this is ridiculous. But now that it's 2022, I'm watching it 10 years later and being like, or 2013 rather, and being like, oh, yeah.
There are elements of this movie that feel like, okay, we get it. This is a little on the nose. We've seen this. It's a little, but it happened before some of these incredibly on the nose things did happen.
Right.
Yeah, we haven't seen it at that point.
The weird thing is this movie is not the kind of movie that I think that these kinds of people would take inspiration from. Like, it's not like Homelander from The Boys that these guys are like deliberately aligning themselves with and missing all of the points. I think that this character in this movie is kind of lame. And I watch people like, I don't want to name drop a bunch of right-wing politicians, but I have some in mind where I like watch them talk and they talk like this guy. I don't think they're doing it because this character is like one of the many fictional like white men that they draw inspiration from. I think it just happened to be shockingly on the nose.
Yeah.
I've never heard, these guys are very proud in real life of the characters they take inspiration from.
A proud bunch of boys, one might say.
But they're very open about the fictional characters they take inspiration from, and I've never heard any of them mention the polite leader from the Purge.
Honestly, no one wants to be compared to the polite leader. He's just a doofus.
I've seen some people
He's
dress
just
up
dorky.
in Purge outfits for Halloween and completely miss the point, but it's usually not
But
like actual white supremacists. It's usually just rich dorks who
people
don't get
like
it.
to dress up in Purge outfits, meaning the neon skull lines over the Statue of Liberty face. That's sick as hell. We can't deny that those Purge masks, very cool. These Purge masks, little boring. But I would like to bring it back real quick to something Emma mentioned right before we started recording, which is upon revealing that the Purge happens on March 31st. And if I'm wrong and it's the 21st, I'm about to feel really stupid, but I'm pretty sure it's the 31st.
I think it's the 21st, actually.
We have Google at our disposal.
Okay,
we do.
Nina's Googling for me. But if it's the 31st, Emma's just like, wow, way to upstage April
It is
Fool's Day.
21st.
Damn it. Well, if it was the
There goes
31st,
my joke.
that's the best part of it being the next day in this hypothetical world where the
you're
initial
right.
guess was correct. Because then at the end of everything, you just go April Fools and you get to go back to everything like normal. Unfortunately, now you have to have a week of awkwardness before that happens.
Also, I'm confused.
Mm-hmm.
The Purge is 24 hours.
Yeah,
but then
a
they
lot of
only
people
run it
act
from
like it's
7 p.m. to
24.
7 a.m. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's only 12 hours.
Yeah.
I think the
Do they say
24
it?
hours was like people who watched the movie once and then talk about it online kind of attitude. I don't think that any of the official stuff has ever said 24 hours.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
It's always been, the official stuff is all 12 hours. Also, the first Purge took place in universe in 2016.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
The year Trump was elected.
Yeah, that was
Or
it
in
was the year
2017. It was devised in 2016. First one takes place in 2017.
Okay.
Which would have been 3 months into the new political party's control.
The new
So,
founding fathers, yeah.
The new founding fathers.
I gotta
NFF.
give them credit for that name, actually. There's some stuff about the like Purge mythos that is like really interesting and I wish was like a little better. Let's get it. Let's actually get into the movie so I can talk about this stuff. What?
I'm confused because we haven't done a summary of what the Purge movie is about.
Yeah.
So
Our listeners are
true.
probably
So true.
confused right now. Noah,
I can
tell these people
do-
what this movie's about.
Oh, I mean, I could tell some people what this movie's
Yeah,
about.
tell him, Noah.
So on March 21st,
Are you sure it's
March
not the
21st
31st?
of 2022, I'm not sure. We see Ethan Hawke. Hawkboy Summer has returned, and
Yeah.
everyone's happy for it. But this is a very different Ethan Hawke than we've seen recently. He's not the slightly dumpy and stressed grabber. He's not the very put together, definitely a writer. You can tell he's a writer from Sinister. He is a businessman, and you can tell because he doesn't have facial hair and he has a spray tan. And he's also talking loudly to his secretary on the phone on his way home from work at the security company where he sells home security to people who don't want to get purged. Now, as I'm sure everyone has picked up by now, the Purge is a day, one day a year, where all crime, including murder, is legal. And that, in the movie, is today, March 21st. So he's trying to get home. He makes small talk with his neighbors who he's like, hey, you made sure to test your security system, right? Because he sold everyone in the neighborhood the same security system he has. And as we pick up later in the movie, in like 10 minutes from now or something, people aren't too happy about that. They kind of feel ripped off and like they paid for the extension that he put on his house, which I'm going to say it's a little tacky of him. You know what I mean? That's
I don't
already a
think
big
so.
house.
I don't think it's.
He wasn't out there forcing them to buy from him.
Literally,
They all
I said the
willingly
same
bought.
thing.
What the fuck are they
And then
mad
they're like,
about?
how fucking dare you get money from your sales to make
Yeah.
us safer? What the fuck?
It's
I
so-
thought
it's
that
like
was so
though,
you-
dumb.
More on that
You
later.
ha-
Becca
you
had a lot to
bought
say
that
about that
shit.
detail.
I did too.
And it feels like an internet socialist's take on how financial things work.
It feels more to me like upper middle class bullshit, but we can talk about that later.
Both of these things can be the same.
Both of these
But
things
anyway,
can be true.
We get some background on the Hawkster's family. We have his daughter who's in a really weird Catholic schoolgirl outfit for the whole movie, and
The
she
entire
has
time.
Yeah,
the
entire
entire
time.
time she doesn't change when she gets home from
I'm
school. I'm so
pretty
mad
sure
about
they
this.
rented that uniform from a porn studio and gave it back to them.
That's what
afterward,
I said.
actually. Like,
Probably.
it's too the skirt's too short.
it
I
is.
told Noah that. I'm like, no schoolgirl outfit looks like that in
No,
real
it's
life.
like the skirt is like 3 inches above her knee. They don't do
Mhm.
that.
Mm.
At least it's a normal
No.
shirt, but like, come on.
It's a normal shirt, but she wears the tie loose and like unbuttoned for half of the movie as well.
Yeah.
Like they very much just ugh.
And it just doesn't make sense for her to keep wearing it at home. It doesn't make sense.
Right, it doesn't make sense.
It's important for the story that we know she is not of age.
Right.
I don't remember if she's 16 or 17, but regardless, she's not 18. And her boyfriend, he is 18. And well, old Hawk does not care for that, and he's like, you got to stop dating my daughter, get out of my house type attitude, which I think is very reasonable.
Yeah.
He also has a son who I believe is named Charlie.
Yes.
And Charlie has a weird thing for robots and
checking
just
his
being
pulse, which stops about the first time he does it after the purge starts.
yeah, checking his vitals and
Yeah.
keeping it in a little notebook. I don't know what the point of that is, but he does do it.
It seems like that should have come back, but
Yeah,
We also have
definitely
wife.
Mary.
Wife is wife.
Cersei Lannister, put some respect
Cersei
on her name.
Lannister
My mistake.
and the king
Didn't know
from the
she was
Northmen,
anybody.
a powerful couple.
But yeah, you know, she is there.
She sure is. And
honestly, she's mostly there to get she's there to get like expositioned at, I feel like. Oh, I'm nervous. Don't worry, honey. This house is safe. I sell these systems all the time.
Yeah,
it's definitely safe.
Mary is kind of just a vessel for foreshadowing for the first half of the movie, and then useless.
And then she starts
half.
crying.
And then a vessel for screaming in the last half of the movie.
Yeah. More
There's
on that
a lot of issues I have with that. But yeah, let's please. So they're all in their home.
To complete the spoiler-free summary, this is a home invasion movie. The home invasion is going to happen. We know it's happening. But we're going to stop the summary when Charlie lets a stranger into the house. He's running down the rich people street saying, they're going to kill me. They're going to kill me. Someone help me. Oh, God, they're going to kill me.
Yeah.
And after he lets him into the house, the rich kids show up, knock on the door, say, forsooth thou must giveth me, the homeless man, ungodly swine of the earth, forsooth must I purge. I must purge on he or purge on thee. And then they walk away.
One of those is a direct quote from the movie.
Yeah, that's how that's how the dude sounds. That's just
it's not my fault they wrote him that way.
Like every line. It's weird.
Yeah.
I don't think the writers knew what that word meant.
But that's the first like 20 minutes of the movie there for you. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. There's also a really awkward dinner scene that just exists to show that Ethan Hawke doesn't know what his daughter does anymore, and also that he's a little, like, pressuring of her, but in a loving, fatherly way, and also that he has open contempt for everything his son does.
I thought the dinner scene was decent family exposition. It shows us what we need to know about the family dynamic going into it.
Yeah,
it's not
which is mostly what I just said.
And like, I'm not gonna try and defend it that much, but I did kind of like the scene.
No, it's a very good. It's one of the better business dad and his family dinner scenes that I've seen in movies.
He's a dad in a horror movie who comes across like he is really legitimately trying to be the best dad that he can be, and he's messing it up a bit, of course, but he's trying to be sort of involved in his kids' lives. He's having conversations with them at the dinner table where he wants to hear about everything that everyone's doing with their day. And his kids are very done with this. But then, also, for as excited as he is to hear about their days, he's just as excited to tell them about his day. I like that. And
they didn't want to hear about that either. But,
no, they did not give a shit. But
like, we get it, Dad. You sell security companies. God.
Oh, you're so successful. Biggest salesman in the region.
You added a giant extension on the house. I did that just to divert briefly. That line where he's like, "This one has a garage on it. Why do you need a car on a boat?" Very funny.
Yes. And also correct. Right. Why do you need a car on a boat? He's right.
Well, so that when you arrive on your vacation destination, you don't have to rent a car. You got your car.
I said James Bond and I meant it.
Yeah.
That's James Bond's boat.
Anyway, so that's the introduction for this movie. That's how that happens before purging happens. And then, once the purging starts, I'm going to be honest with you, it just goes. Like, the rest of the summary when we get to it is going to be, I think, pretty one and done. But let's talk about some critical reception real quick.
We got some critical reception real quick.
I'm expecting all 100%. Am I right?
Well, I mean, Emma,
that is.
I don't want to. Emma's calling it right. IMDb 10 out of 10, Rotten Tomatoes 100%, Metacritic 100%, Letterboxd 7 out of 5. Perfect movie. But we got 5.7 on IMDb, 39% on Rotten Tomatoes, 41% on Metacritic, and 2.7 out of 5 on IMDb. Rotten Tomatoes obviously is the low man out. We're hovering in the area of 5, I think, if we were to average this out, generally 5, high 40. But I wanted to highlight, every now and then, I'll just look up a movie, and one of the results is the RogerEbert.com review. And I'm a sucker for the Roger Ebert review.
Of course.
Because that man...
They can be scathing.
Oh, there's such mean reviews sometimes. If he doesn't like a movie, or if his cast and, team of reviewers doesn't, boy, It's mean.
Yeah, they don't hold
And
back.
The
Fun to
Purge,
read.
The Purge got a 1.5 out of 4 on this one. I wanna, oh shoot, where's the, let's see. The concept of the Purge Night is novel enough. Crime is not in fact cathartic, so while behaving badly once a year may keep the nation's crime rate down, it also turns people into monsters. But the movie forgets to explore its own premise and instead focuses on a straw dogs-like scenario in which a homeowner resists a mob that wants to break into his house.
I literally at one point said this movie does not need to happen in a Purge scenario. This exact story could be told completely outside of the Purge. It just feels like a normal kind of post-apocalypse, maybe. Or just normal home invasion movie. The only difference is the security system, which we're shown doesn't do anything anyway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fair.
Someone refers to the polite stranger as the nerd-hating Aryan younger brother of Michael Myers.
Yeah.
In my notes, I just referred to him as Proud Boy every time.
Yeah.
Wakefield's character, only identified as polite stranger in the film's credits, gives James a choice. Sacrifice the bleeding stranger and save his family, which is the legal name of the man who is chased into the house, is Bleeding Stranger.
Wow, the names
so that
in this
we
movie
know.
are terrible.
And save his family or perish for a noble lost cause. The scenario is promising enough, though Demonico hypocritically encourages viewers to applaud the spectacular deaths of some of the home invaders before eventually concluding that the best thing for people is to be repressed and non-violent.
I have so okay, so this is all very interesting.
Read, actually, but
I think that there's some. I want to talk about how this, like, what he's talking about with the the bloody, like, deaths of the home invaders kind of undermines what could be a really interesting. It undermines, like, the actual story. It undermines the tension. And it undermines the stakes. And that's what I want to talk about when it comes to when the Purgers actually get inside the building. Because it stops being like a suspenseful movie at that point, because from that point on out, no one other than the polite stranger actually makes any impact on the family out of that group of people.
But before we get into that,
right.
What would y'all rate this movie? Emma, hypothetically. On a 1 to 10 scale, what do you think this movie sits at?
I think I would give this movie 4.5 purges out of 10.
4.5 purges out of 10. All right. Jeff, what would you give this Purge movie out of Purge of Purge? Purge?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say probably like I'm trying not to say 6 because I know I rank like every movie a 6 if I just don't have a reason to hate it, but yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna give it a 6. That might be a tad bit more than it actually deserves, but I don't know. I've got some nostalgia with this movie because watching the first few Purge movies are part of the reason that I'm with Becca currently. So
yeah,
that's cool.
All right.
Yeah,
I didn't know
I respect that.
Yeah, right before we started dating, one of the things that led us to going on our first date, which was seeing Logan in theaters, was
Good
that we had
movie.
watched through the first 3 Purge movies. After she was done with a D&D game that she was playing at my parents' house with Noah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Did you hold hands?
She fell asleep on my shoulder.
It's so good.
So gay.
And now
I mean,
5
good.
years later, we're still together. So
Nice.
I kind of have some undue nostalgia for the Purge movies, and I'm not gonna be sorry for that.
Yeah, that's valid.
Don't be. That's fine.
Yeah.
On that note, I gave this movie a 3.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're about to try and make me feel bad for that, aren't you?
I don't like these. I've seen 2 Purge movies now total. I've seen the first Purge and I've seen the first Purge. So I
Wait, are those
God awful
different
naming
movies?
convention.
Yes.
So it goes
There
the
are
Purge,
2 movies
Purge
called The
Anarchy,
First Purge.
No, there's
it's
this
the
one,
Purge-
The Purge, which is the
Purge
first
Anarchy.
Purge movie, but
Purge Election Year, the first Purge, which is the 4th movie, and the Forever Purge.
can we just like pass some sort of a law that says if a series of movies are connected, they have to put a number in the title? Because I'm so tired
love
of
that.
series of stories where you have to like Google what order they go in.
But then
Resident Evil is atrocious Resident Evil is atrocious for that.
We wouldn't have the incredible cinematic masterpiece Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift.
That's true.
Here's my thing.
But you could put a 3 in there and not lose anything.
Fast and Furious 3, Tokyo
Fast and
Drift.
Fast and Furious.
And I have an issue with it on the on the opposite side, because I think that kind of logic is what led us to miss out on Now You See Me, Now You Don't being the titles of those two movies, and instead we got Now You See Me and Now You See Me 2.
Which is incredibly stupid and frustrating. You're right. All right.
It is.
All right.
Anyway, Noah, what did you rate this movie?
I rate this movie a 4 out of 10. I think it's fun enough. I think it's got a couple of cool ideas. I just think the writing sucks ass, and it really, there's so much more that this movie could have been.
Sure.
Like, this movie is so close to being pretty good.
All 3 points that I give this movie come from its potential.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's
I also like Ethan Hawke.
I do love me some Ethan Hawke. It
is a Hawk Boy summer.
It is Hawk Boy summer. Also, I want to talk about the casting just real quick before we get back into the spoiler summary. The daughter's casting, she looks like Maya Hawke. I know that it couldn't have been because Maya Hawke would have been too young to play that character, but when I first saw her, I was like, wow, that's some pretty accurate casting, all right? I'll accept that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I felt the opposite way,
Really?
specifically because I think Ethan Hawke has like bright blue or green eyes.
Blue.
Cersei
oh my god, that
Lannister-
sounded so soonish of me there.
Cersei Lannister
Anyway.
Had
has
that
like
answer ready pretty quick there.
hazel or green eyes, I think. And both
Mhm.
children had dark brown eyes.
That is
and I'm
true.
like,
That's a good point.
That is a really
I
good
know I
point.
shouldn't nitpick this much on a movie, but it's just like if it was one kid having dark brown eyes and the other one had whatever,
You can
I
forgive
wouldn't
it, but-
care as much. But both of them having dark brown eyes, I'm like, why?
That's fair. That is fair.
that's very reasonable, yeah. I guess I never think about that when I think about like kid casting with parents in movies, but no, that should be thought about, I guess, more than I do at the very least.
All right.
Or you're
But
going to
hey.
lose it when we eventually talk about The Shining and you find out how Danny Lloyd got cast for his
I'm
voice.
so excited.
That's
Interesting.
unsurprising to me.
No, I feel like I did know that.
So,
that makes, but hey,
let's talk about some content warnings.
because there definitely is some.
There are some. Yeah.
Proud
We've got
Boys.
some.
Proud
We
Boys.
got some Proud Boys.
It's definitely there. Like there is no overt like stated racism.
Sure, but
But
it
it
is in
is-
there though.
It is implied.
I was gonna say it's not unintentional that the bleeding man
Is the
is
only
the only non-white character. Well, he's not the only non-white character.
Yeah, no, one of the neighbors is also black, but
It is
Other
not
than that-
unintentional that the man being hunted is a black man.
by a party of white frat kids.
And
Yeah.
the way that they
Um,
talk about him, and like they say the things
Mhm.
that they do in criticism of him being homeless, but like you know,
We
what
all
they're
know
really
what he
saying.
means.
Exactly. All those sentences overlap with just being racist.
Yeah,
Yes.
So
Yeah, so there's that. I think if you do not like creepy masks, we've got a lot of that kind of thing going on. There's gore. It's not good. There's a lot of CG blood, but it's there. Creepy dolls. We got creepy dolls.
do
Suppose
we have
there
creepy
are.
dolls?
We do.
The robot.
Charlie's little freaking robot thing,
Yeah, it's a little
Okay.
burned baby doll.
for some reason.
Yeah, it's kind of
That's
weird.
fine. And then I think the only other thing is there's some really kind of like uncomfortable sexual scenes in this movie between the daughter and the boyfriend. They're fine. I just personally I was uncomfortable with the way that they sexualized her, but
Yeah.
that's a discussion to have later on.
Mm.
Noah has noted that as pedo vibes
Yeah.
in his content warning list.
You can only have the boyfriend say, your dad can't keep us apart. Besides, it doesn't matter that I'm 18. You're really mature for your age.
Yeah. Like every
Yeah,
time
he
he's
does
on
say that
screen, he looks directly into the
repeatedly.
camera and says, "Age is just a number."
Literally, yeah. Yeah, no, it's not super comfy. Other than that, it's a Blumhouse movie, so you know, you get what you get.
It's pretty Blumhousey, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Blumhouse.
It is that kind of Blumhouse makes two kinds of movies. I don't know if we've talked about this on this podcast yet, but they make bad movies and movies that they don't overemphasize are Blumhouse movies. There are some movies that they're like, this is a Blumhouse movie. You know what that means. And then there are others that are like, yes, Blumhouse, but sophisticated this time.
Blumhouse.
But yeah, I think that's it for content warnings. This is not a really overly, like, this could be like an action kind of thriller thing more than a horror. Honestly.
Yeah, if it weren't for the kids wearing masks, this is a thriller movie.
Yeah.
At least I would say that.
Spoiler alert for Emma's scary rating, which is right now. I almost entirely consider this just like an action movie.
It's really more what it is.
Yeah.
I don't think there are many horror elements besides people wearing shitty, like, plastic Halloween costume masks.
And some of the shots are definitely trying to make it a horror movie, like with the like security camera footage of the frat kids, but
and that's just weird and gross, or not gross. That's just weird and dumb and gimmicky.
It's sort of unnecessary.
Yeah, I really didn't think this was a horror movie. Really,
the franchise is a horror franchise, so that they can get away with having extra blood when they need it.
The premise could be the premise of this movie and the franchise as a whole could be horror if they operated on the premise in a specific way, but they don't.
Right. So can I
let me finish my scary rating.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Oh yeah,
scary rating.
If you were absolutely terrified of Home Alone, this movie probably isn't for you. But if you were fine with Home Alone, this movie is a 0 out of 10 scary.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
All right, are we gonna let's do this spoiler review?
Jeff had a can of worms.
Jeff?
Okay, yeah. So
can of worm.
Before we watched this yesterday, Becca was asking me if this is actually a horror movie because she didn't really consider it to be so, and then she was also talking about that other the Netflix Mike Flanagan movie Hush, and how Noah, you had described it as like some manner of thriller or horror movie or something, and she was like, just what's really going on with that? What's the difference? And I ended up talking about how, like, I don't really think there is necessarily a line between the two. Genres can overlap, and they do in a lot of places, blah, blah, blah. I'm not here to talk about that. But I do want to ask you guys all the question, to what degree is a story set in some kind of dystopian future not a horror movie? Because it seems to me that anything set in a dystopian future is ultimately going to end up being horror on some level or another, just on like a systemic level, not an individual level.
Right. I think Hunger Games does that really well.
Specifically,
that's exactly what I was talking about at the time, actually. I ended up talking about the Hunger Games. Like,
I don't think they shy away from it in the Hunger Games either. I think that's like a lot of the point of it is how like horrific it is, and they especially in the books, she really delves into that. But yeah, Noah, sorry, what?
But I think you specifically mentioned Hush along with this, and I think the home invasion element is what cements those two as, or this and Hush as horror movies.
Okay,
you know, because I think if you start to include horror into horrific concepts, then what is it anymore, you know? Because then there's too much that lets in, and you could also sit there and argue that that's what cosmic horror is. It's a scary thing that we don't know, you know. But I think when we get into the subject of like uncomfortable situations, like I think Blade Runner, you know, like that there we got our techno sci-fi dystopian future, but I wouldn't call it a horror movie.
No.
Even though there's a lot of there's enough elements that you could probably string it into one.
Happening, certainly.
I think it depends on what the creator chooses to focus on.
What I was about to say.
Yeah.
It ends up being about presentation.
The creator's highlight. Whatever the spotlight is put on the most, I think that's what shifts it from one to the other.
I think in those settings, any of them could be horror if you chose to acknowledge it. Because like we were talking about Logan. A lot of the like the futuristic stuff is where a lot of the horror does come from in it, with like the cloning and like my favorite part in Logan with the future stuff is when they're driving along in their automobile with all of the automatic trucks, and they get into that car chase where the automatic trucks are like doing their own thing.
Yeah.
There's stuff like that like if you choose to go to the full if you choose to explore the dystopian future that you've put together to its fullest in that way, then yeah, I think any of them have the potential to be horror, which is why Black Mirror is such an interesting series, is because it always is like, yes, here's a dystopian future. We are going to make it horrific. We are going to explore all the ways in which this specific individual horror we put together for this episode would be like bad and terrifying.
Yeah.
Versus like, this is why The Purge is so disappointing to me, is because it has a setting that if they chose to explore it would be very horrific. Like if they actually took it to its logical conclusion, but instead what they've chosen to do is again put together for this first movie at least, to put together a scenario that isn't Purge specific.
Yeah.
They do use the Purge elements as kind of set dressing, but that's kind of why I found this movie so disappointing, is because you set up this premise that could be really terrifying, and then the most that you really explore it is as side characters are doing the interesting stuff. You see a man sharpening a machete in his yard before the night. You see different neighbors going on walks with their guns and stuff. Even the stuff that the frat kids were seemingly doing before they got to the house is more interesting than what they do when they get there. So that's kind of my beef with this movie, I think, more than anything else. Yeah. I think that like we can get into like the discussions on class and stuff that this movie does like set up and that are discussed in the other movies, and I think that's really interesting. But I don't think this movie necessarily had to be this movie to discuss those. But yeah.
So let me give the rest of the story beats.
Yeah, let's go through.
We have the bloody stranger in the house. We have the Ebert review referred to the polite stranger as the Jackboot Collegiate, which I think is that's just a fun name for him.
Yeah.
We got him and his gang outside being creepy for the sake of being creepy. And there's a lot of not tension where they're just going around saying, I can't believe what's happening. I lost my daughter in my own massive fucking house because my house is so big I can't find my child. I don't know. This is a little too opinion-based, probably. I don't know. I feel like the tension isn't there for me, though. It just doesn't... I'm told it's tense, but I don't feel that it's tense, you know? Mm-hmm. But anyway, we get Charlie guides the bloody man around to his hiding spot, and he pilots his little robot around until he runs into his sister, who's just like, hey, I'm hiding in your hiding spot. I'm okay. By the way, the boyfriend came back as well. I totally forgot to mention him. But he came back to kill Ethan Hawke, and then Ethan Hawke kills him instead. Very, very quick little shootout on the stairway. Ethan Hawke's worried he killed his daughter, but he didn't. Everything's okay. Everything's cool and fine until, the frat boys show up.
Yeah. And because of that shootout, they lose track of where the homeless guy is in the house because he hides when that happens.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So he is, he's creeping around the house. The daughter is creeping around the house, and they end up both hiding in the same place. Which means that the homeless man now has a gun to the daughter's head because she had Henry, her boyfriend's gun, with her when that happened. Let's see. They've been told to give the man back, otherwise, the frat boys are going to break into the house and kill everybody. I didn't get a lot of notes on this movie because it does resolve very quickly, and there's not a lot to talk about in the meantime. Outside of like bigger concept stuff, not exactly movie notes. So I'm just trying to remember real quick.
I can do it if you want. I got a pretty good handle on the
Ethan Hawke and Mary end up restraining the bloody man and stabbing him with a letter opener to get him to comply to sit in a chair so that they can sacrifice him to the frat boys. And then Mary's like, I can't believe that you've done this, Ethan. When did you become like this? And walks away. And then Ethan's daughter is also like, I hate everything. Our life is never going to be normal again. And then the bloody man's like, yeah, go ahead and turn me over. Save your family. But they're too late because now Ethan got a soul and he decided they're going to defend the house and not sacrifice somebody for their own safety. We get a sequence of action shots where Ethan Hawke dispatches most of the invaders because at this point, the big van that was threatened to arrive has arrived and pulled all the security gates down. Let's see. Ethan Hawke then gets killed by the polite leader.
After he takes down like 5 friggin' other people who come through to try and purge, he just takes them out mercilessly with no real effort expended except for one fight that he gets in that's kind of extended with a guy. But other than that, he kind of just shoots him down in a way that, again, I think destroys a lot of tension. But he does take out a lot of people before he gets stabbed.
We don't get a chance to be scared of most of them, ultimately, is the big thing.
No. Which is a bit of a bummer. You know, we don't... And then he opens a door and gets immediately stabbed by the polite leader.
Yeah, he takes out a bunch of people and then he goes down like a bitch, is basically the summary of that kind of part of the movie.
Yeah.
But then, in the worst twist ever imagined, the neighbors see that the security stuff has been pulled off of Ethan's house. And they come over, dispatch all the frat boys immediately. They just come in, get rid of everyone, and then they're like, well, we came because we're jealous of you guys having money that we gave you, so we're here to kill you now. But then, in another shocking turn of events, the bloody man comes out of nowhere, saves the day. Ethan Hawke does die, though, so that's like the sad moment. And Mary says, no more killing tonight. Everyone's going to sit around the breakfast table and we're going to wait until it's 7 a.m. and that's it. The movie ends with her breaking her neighbor's nose and letting the bloody man leave.
And that's it.
And that's the end of the movie.
The movie just kinda...
Over the credits, it's just a bunch of stuff where it's like, our most successful purge to date. I lost my sons and I'm not proud to be an American anymore. There were so many people purging. It was a glorious sight. You know, like a bunch of stuff like that. That's like hyping up the purge.
Posting up record profits and
yeah, security and gun sales are up this year.
Yeah, it's really And
that.
Yep, that's the movie.
Half a sec. I need to find my note because I had a couple of thoughts in here, and I want to make sure that I. Okay, so from the get-go in this movie, they slip in this little stuff about, like, some people say that poor people can't afford defense, so this is almost like the Purge is targeting poor people. And then the other radio announcer says, well, this is America. I guess we're all allowed to have opinions. You know, and he just kind of, like, brushes that off.
Yeah, and then they talk about how the economy has improved since the Purge was implemented.
Yeah, because they're like, well, all the poor people are getting killed.
It's working.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, unemployment is at 1%.
Yeah.
And it's like, gee, I wonder why.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, it's very... it is not subtly stated over the course of this movie that the reason unemployment is so great and the reason the economy is going up is because all the poor people are being killed.
Yeah.
So if there's less poor people, there's less people that rely on, like, support programs,
being unemployed.
There's no one being unemployed. Yeah, so all of your metrics for measuring how great we must be doing kind of go up. But I think that's my issue with this movie's, like, the politics of the Purge, right? Is that on paper, and on paper, the Purge works in this world. Which, firstly,
but
to clarify very heavily, I don't think it would work in real life.
Obviously not.
Very clearly want to state this would not work. But in the world of the Purge is a thing that does work. Even if we find out later it's really shaky science that was altered to fit the needs of the moment. Yeah, but that's the third or fourth movie that they finally outright say we lied about statistics to make the Purge look better.
I don't think the movie is trying to convince you, the viewer, that it's a good idea or anything. I think the way that it's all shown is very blatantly like, this is all just lies and misinformation and politics to get everyone to go along with this thing that the government wants everyone to do.
No, I agree. I agree, but I think that's the problem, is that, like, surface level read of this movie is that sometimes unfortunate things happen, but the Purge, the grander concept that's just like a backdrop for the movie, it's like, well, the Purge works. It's just like, doesn't it suck that it happened to these people? Doesn't it suck that it happens to sometimes people just don't deserve that?
You feel like that's the tone of the movie?
I don't feel like that's the tone of the movie. I think that that's the bad faith, easy read that some people can get.
Okay.
I'm very much hating on a straw man here.
Sure.
I'm not going to pretend there's not a straw man situation that I'm like, that man thinks that the Purge is a good idea.
Well, but like, we do know about the like Saw fandom brain rot that you were talking about a little while back, and I'm certain or it's like, that actually, Purge fandom brain rot also exists on a similar scale.
I mean, I have seen people talk about how, maybe the Purge would be a good idea. It's just like, let it all out in the night, blah blah blah. People actually do buy into the pseudoscience of this movie, like. And it's a very blatant, like, fascist ideology movie, right?
Incredibly.
Like, hey,
the whole thing.
This sucks. Fascists think this, and that's very clearly outlined as and this is not a good thing.
Yeah.
But the solution proposed is where I have a problem, because the solution proposed is, and this is something that Noah and I talked about, in the week leading up to this movie. The solution proposed by this movie is that there are two types of people during the Purge. There are the rich people who are killing because they have the money to do so, and there are the poor people who are being killed because they don't have the money to do so.
Whoa.
And their solution for this,
there are three people, because then there's the people that
opt out of it because they also have the money to do so.
Right, because they have the money to do so. So those are the three things. There is and the like solution that this movie proposes is that you basically defend each other, but it's only defense. There is not in this movie a direct action proposed to take the Purge as also an opportunity to, it's the only people who use the Purge are the type of people like the rich like frat boys. And in the first Purge, I'm gonna bring this into it right now. I haven't seen the other two. I have seen the fourth movie, the first Purge. In the first Purge, that is also another thing that happens, is the good guys are always on the defense. They are never taking direct action. And that is what frustrates me about this movie, is that its proposed solution is that we defend ourselves and defend other people against the people who are coming after us. And that is all that we can do.
Now, what I will say is a core piece of info Nina is missing is the first Purge, the fourth movie, is taking place before anyone has seen any effects of everything. It's a small scale experiment style. So it's not going to be as thought out. This movie,
that's true.
I don't think this movie was made with a franchise in mind.
Sure.
So they're probably not thinking out that kind of stuff. In full defense, the second and third movie do have paramilitary groups that do move in the way of trying to take out who they can.
Yeah. Well, and also second movie is... Go ahead and finish. I've got other stuff.
But also in universe, there are rules about who you're allowed to purge. And many of the faces that people know would be like a political figure. No one knows about racist Bob down the street who's racist to be racist all the time, stuff like that.
It's one. I mean, I guess again, if I fully understand that my knowledge of this movie is just the one that was built because it wasn't supposed to be a franchise. It's just a one-off concept thing, and the one that was a small scale and doesn't actually have the full Purge going to its full degree. I understand that. But it said it in the Roger Ebert review as well, that the solution is to be repressed or whatever. Go ahead. Sorry.
I don't really think that's an accurate read of what this movie is saying, though. I don't think this movie is proposing we just be on the defensive and try to protect one another. I think this movie is showing that happening and showing it failing ultimately, and kind of saying that doing that just doesn't work. It's not enough to just be on the defensive all the time because you never accomplish anything that way. about halfway through the movie, Becca, like, something happened, and Becca turned to me and she was like, "Is this whole thing just a critique of Democrats?" Like,
well, yeah, but that's what I mean.
I feel like we're not supposed to see James as like a hero or anything. I think this is a story of him failing, and that's the thing that we're supposed to notice.
I do know, yeah, and I agree. But my thing is that the ending that we get is that the kids and the wife and the bleeding stranger all band together to take care of each other and to just restrain, and that killing the people who are trying to kill you is not the way to end things. They all just end up sitting around at the dinner table until the purge is done. And right. I get that, like, you know, we're not supposed to, the purge, since the purge is bad and we all acknowledge this, like, being just, oh, it's legal, so you're allowed to take revenge is probably not like a good way to go either. But it is, again, the ultimate like thing that keeps people alive is to just stick together as that group and defend each other, like to fight back in that way. That's like, I agree with what you're saying about Ethan Hawke, absolutely. But still, I think it's muddled at best.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I think these specific criticisms, though, are about the franchise as a whole, missing core parts of some of the stuff the franchise does.
My criticisms?
Some of them, yeah.
I'm saying, I acknowledge that. I'm saying from what I've seen.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Those are the problems that I have with this movie, which again was not meant to be a franchise. So if we're just looking at this movie and its message, that's the problems I have with it. And then the only other movie that I've seen from this franchise, which is the fourth movie,
is a prequel.
Is a prequel that just has a lot of the same issues. That's all I'm saying, really. So I haven't seen anything yet that could contradict me, but that's kind of part of why I am willing to give this franchise a third chance by actually watching the second movie. I'm not going to give up on it yet because, again, it's a really interesting concept, and I would love to see it.
The second movie is the best one, in my opinion, which is unfortunate. But this movie...
Can I talk about stuff that like is not the politics that kind of bugged me, or do you want to go ahead if you had something to say?
No, I just want to bring it back to this movie because we're kind of getting too big.
Let me talk about this movie, and just a couple things. Dialogue, I do have issues with that. It's not just the polite stranger, because we've talked about this. People do talk like that in real life, specifically the kind of people that they are critiquing by making this like group of frat kids. They do kind of use that language. They think that by sounding intelligent, people will automatically believe that they're intelligent. So they use big words, and they make themselves sound polite while saying incredibly offensive things, so that when people get mad at them, they're like, I was just saying my opinion, and I was being, these people are so uneducated and they're ignorant and they don't understand, all that stuff. Yeah. I think that's absolutely accurate. The stuff that frustrated me was when other characters did the same thing. Like, at one point the boyfriend is like, your father cannot forbid me from seeing you. Sir,
there's a world that this movie got another 2 or 3 passes in the script room, and it's actually really good.
Sure. Yeah. No,
I think the bones of a great movie are here, but instead we got the Purge.
I think a lot of the dialogue is very unnatural. In the same way for all characters. It's like the characters aren't really different from each other either. They all kind of talk the same way, and apart from having different opinions, the way that they present those opinions is all very similar to me. And then some of the shooting stuff that they do, the way that they do the camera, of the doll camera, where they just kind of blur out the outsides of the image, and
that's not great.
It was kind of meh. And the clarity of the quality of the audio in the
doorbell camera.
The doorbell camera, like that audio was so clean, and it kind of hindered the experience for me, because it just sounded like he was watching a movie of them instead of listening to a doorbell camera's audio. Why do you need a mic that good on your doorbell camera, Ethan?
If he had been at the front door and it was that clean, like I wouldn't have minded that, because we did see that like they could talk to each other through his big like blast door. But the big blast door is something I would like to mention. I would like to point out a key flaw in the defenses of this house. We have sheet metal blast doors that come down over the windows, over the doors. The whole house is, in theory, fully secure. What did they connect the chains to?
Yeah,
did they weld them to the house?
I was wondering.
Because, like, if they welded a hook onto the house and then attached their chains to the hook, okay. I actually fully buy that. That's like, welding can be stronger than the original metal. I get it. But we didn't see that. How did they pull these flat, smooth metal doors off the house?
Yeah.
Are there hooks on the bottom?
I've got to assume
but there must be something that they can hook onto. There's a couple of little things like that. Maybe they had super magnets that are so strong that they can't be pulled off ever.
Sure.
Who knows?
It seems unlikely.
There's so many possibilities.
Magnets that are transported in a lead cube so that they don't magnetize to anything.
Magnets, how do they work?
How do they work?
Nobody knows.
I don't want to talk to a scientist.
No. Okay, so here's I'm gonna call this things I actually really liked about this movie, but I wish they'd done better.
Yeah, let's go.
I really like the idea of the boyfriend and the dad's confrontation. I wish that they had taken that scenario a little further into the movie and not killed him off right away.
He's just there and gone, yeah.
Yeah, that was like really weird. Killing him off immediately. I thought it was going to be a bigger thing.
Yeah, for that to be like a longer subplot. He's trying to deal with him while he's trying to deal with the Proud Boys, and it's like he's got to divide his attention. That could be cool.
It could have been like something that ended up getting them in trouble in the long run because he spent so much time dealing with the boyfriend that he lost time that he needed against the Proud Boys. That might have been really interesting. Maybe they did resolve things. Maybe he sees that this kid isn't that bad, but then the kid dies anyway. On that note, what was the boyfriend's plan? Was he going to kill her dad and then keep dating her?
Yeah.
Clearly.
What did he think was going to happen there?
That's honestly, that's the biggest plot hole of the universe of The Purge, is that the entire nation on a dime flipped to...
Yeah, murder's fine.
From murder is bad to murder on the 21st of March is good and has no complications or consequences within our social groups.
Yeah, like...
Smiley face.
Like, are there no social repercussions? I was going to bring us into a segment later on in the episode where I talk about, like, boring problems that The Purge causes.
Oh, I want to do that still.
And I don't want to dive into that too soon, but I am going to come back to that specific point.
Okay. So that's number one, is the boyfriend's character entirely, as I think there could have been way more. I like that she snuck him in there. I like that, like, he wanted to, like, have something with the dad, and that's why he agreed to it. That could have been really cool. Wish they'd done more. Number two, the rich people who were pissed. Their reasoning for being pissed at this at the main characters is dumb, but I wish that maybe they'd been present for more of the movie than just the last 15 minutes. Maybe they worked with the Proud Boys and helped the security system get taken down because they know the weaknesses to it because they all have it. Maybe they oppose the Proud Boys and they try to for more of the movie instead of just coming in at the end and blowing them all away. Maybe they're constantly working against each other to try to get to this family first.
Maybe even a line when they get in, they're like, look how easily they got into your house. We got ripped off.
Or maybe, something like that would have been nice.
Just a little bit
we know
more.
that they told, the Proud Boys where the man had gone, the bleeding stranger had gone. Maybe they actually vocalized that they were just waiting for the Proud Boys to take the defenses down so that they could come in after, in a way that's that makes them seem more calculated.
Yeah.
Instead of it just being like, haha, we didn't even want to take you down until we saw that your house was open. And then we were like, well, why waste an opportunity? It's maybe make them seem a little more thoughtful.
There's a lot about that set of scenes, but I do, for what we got of the neighbors, I do like what we got from them, though.
Yeah, no, that's exactly why I wish we'd had a little more.
Yeah, they're interesting characters. They're very easy to hate. It could have been neat if we got more reason to hate them. more time.
My favorite characterization of the mom and dad in this movie was when they're bitching about their neighbors throwing parties and
like,
going
they
purging
they
without
weren't having a party. Well, just thank God we weren't invited.
It's so good. That was
I love the scene where he's watching on the monitors and he's like, oh, hey, look, those two are going out hunting together. They're purging together? Are they friends? I didn't know that. Like,
I love that. She's just like, I don't think they're friends. Huh. Well, they're purging together, so.
Like, he's just watching, he's like, what,
I
like,
liked that.
Like, are they friends, or like...
I would have loved more of just like, because again, like that's something that we see in the dinner scene too, is just these typical awkward upper class suburban parents.
Yeah.
And to see them kind of commenting on the purge in that way makes it kind of this like funny satirical like thing that the whole movie could have been if they hadn't taken it. Either stop taking yourself so seriously and go in that direction, or take yourself more seriously and don't break the tension in your third act the way you do.
I think the thing that I wish they would have leaned more into is that like all the exposition we get about the purge and why it's happening and what's really going on is done in such a like casual way. And I know the like, news clips and stuff are kind of a clumsy exposition tool in most situations, but I really like the way that they're used in this movie. Like we don't get a ton. We don't learn about the new founding fathers and who they are, but by the fact that they're called the new founding fathers and they're the ones who implemented the
what
purge,
they believe.
We know what's going on. Like I would absolutely love to watch like a fucking Crash Course History styled video just about the new founding fathers and what's going on in this dystopian version of America, but I love that we don't get that. We get a handful of literal, what am I talking about? We get a handful of little things sprinkled through the rest of the movie, dropped really casually, the way that those things would be dropped in normal conversation. And I think that's just really neat. I like the way that this movie tells us the stuff we need to know, for the most part.
For the most part,
yeah. And I wish it would have leaned into that, like, that casual air of talking about the purge.
Yeah, I agree. What you said Becca had thoughts on that I wanted to hear? Was it the being mad about the the extension to the house, as if you didn't willingly spend money on the
neighbors? So just for our audience's context on this, my partner Becca grew up in a very upper middle class family. Her dad's a doctor, blah blah blah. So, like, a lot of those social stuff that you see in those circles is people with a ton of money pretending that they're experiencing hard times financially because that's just how they are. They'll have an extra 100,000 in the bank and they'll be saying that, money's tight right now. One time her parents complained that, quote, money's tight right now. And the evidence of this, the horrible inconvenience they were experiencing because of it was... You guys are going to lose it at this. They had to cut down and only go antiquing every other weekend. This was a literal fucking complaint that her mom had.
Oh my God.
I don't have anything to say to that.
Like this is a real person that I have had conversations with who said this. And
God, I wish I could go antiquing every other weekend.
Right? That's what I said.
I wish I could go antiquing once a month.
I'll take once every other month.
I haven't gone antiquing ever.
I've never gone antiquing and bought something.
Yeah.
I go antiquing to look.
Oh, and further context for that specific comment, the reason that money was tight at the time was because they had just purchased another rental property and were fixing it up so that they could continue to be fucking landlords. That's the complaint there. Okay, but
when we see the people... Let me float a hypothetical here.
Yeah.
What if they just didn't go antiquing for a minute?
Or maybe if they just quit buying rental properties.
They didn't just stop buying houses that I can't buy now.
Yeah, so when we see this movie and we've got these people living in these huge fucking houses complaining about somebody else living in a huge fucking house and putting an extension on it, this is all like relatively familiar social situations for her to be watching. So, like, she saw that and she was like, well, this is some classic upper middle class shit. They're all just out here saying things like, oh, not everyone had the year that you did, when clearly they had a perfectly fine year. It's just that's what upper middle class people do. They act like they've got real serious problems because they're not upper class. And ultimately they don't. They fucking don't. They had a perfectly fine year. They live in these giant houses. They bought the security systems from Ethan Hawke.
I would say they live in mansions in a private gated community.
Yeah.
That they dropped like $60,000 on a security system for, at least.
Yeah, like it's got to be a tremendous amount of money you spend on those things, right?
Yeah.
But then they hate Ethan Hawke and his family because, and this is an observation that I made about the class warfare front of this movie, they're new money. The neighbors hate them because they're new money. Ethan Hawke says 10 years ago, we couldn't afford to pay our bills, and now we're thinking about buying a boat. The people in the neighborhood around them, obviously with the amount of money that they all clearly have, they had to have gotten that money by profiteering off of others to some degree, right? So clearly they're fine with doing that, but they hate seeing someone who's making money off of them personally, and they hate seeing someone rise up to their level from below.
That makes sense, and it makes sense why they would then, like, they would even have a moment of thought about the man who they had brought in, because they aren't as far removed from him necessarily as the other people in the neighborhood are.
And that's kind of what a lot of Ethan Hawke's arc over the course of this movie is, I think, is it's kind of him and his family having sort of their class awakening. Because, like, Ethan Hawke starts this movie off full on just as a class traitor. You know, he has risen up from more or less nothing, he says, and now he's doing pretty well, but he sees a homeless man in need, and he says, we got to get this guy out of my house.
Yeah.
And then...
a big part of this movie is, like you said, class traitor, but also the political problem of people being like, it's not affecting me, so good luck to you, fuck you, I'm staying out of the way.
Exactly.
Until they come for you.
Yeah, like the way... I got really hung up on the way that Ethan Hawke talks about the Purge, because it seems to me he's got to be sort of conflicted about it, right? Because it doesn't seem that he thinks it's a super good thing necessarily, but it is paying his bills. It's taking very good care of him right now, so he can't fully condemn it, right? But the particular way that he is profiteering off the misfortune of others by selling these Purge security systems and then just kind of holing up in his house to sit it out is just really, just a really interesting, like, I don't know, apolitical centrist thing for him to do. You know, where he's just like, well, I'm not taking sides. I don't really think anything anyone does is fully right, fully wrong. I think everybody's got good points, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, he has taken the side.
Not to purge.
Yeah, ultimately, he has taken the side of the oppressor by being the oppressor. Whether he goes out and actively participates or not, he is part of the system. He is enabling others.
Now, I would like to hear, Jeff, what were some of the mundane problems the Purge would cause?
All right.
I do want to hear about that.
So, midway through this movie, part of what kicked me onto this is midway through this movie, I started to think, hey, why doesn't this rich neighborhood have like a team of mercenaries keeping purgers out?
Oh, that's a good idea, actually.
And then I thought, hey, wait a minute.
Like, logically, because I hadn't thought of it
Okay,
yet,
but then I thought, wait a minute. The fact that this incident is occurring, every event of this movie, the fact that this is occurring in this particular neighborhood is going to absolutely tank property values, isn't it? Because rich people probably choose their houses and their neighborhoods based on how safe they will be from purgers. Or they, like, you know, be out of town in the middle of nowhere on purge night or whatever. And then I thought, oh shit, I'm thinking about the housing market in the context of a Purge movie. And I mean, number one, yeah, this movie did take place, didn't take place. It came out not super long after that whole 2008 housing crisis thing and what a combination of other economic disasters. So, like, obviously that is a thing you're kind of supposed to be thinking about. But not on that fully. I was like, well, surely the Purge causes a bunch of boring problems, right? Like, yeah, we've got the housing market and the way that, like, property values are going to be affected by how likely it is that there's going to be a lot of purgers in the neighborhood, but also, like, what are the social ramifications of going out and doing shit on a purge night. Like in the second movie, we see a handful of people talking like at work before the purge about what they're planning on doing, and they're, dropping casual shit about like, murdering people or whatever. And then other worse things are mentioned. But like, what do you do going back to work the next Monday after Purge Day? You just go to the potentially ruined wreckage of your workplace and start cleaning it up, or what? Because an awful lot of places, again, this is addressed in the second movie, businesses...
Purge insurance.
Yeah, purge insurance. Businesses have to defend themselves somehow. Is there somebody who gets paid like time and a half to work on Purge Day to defend their workplace?
Because I was thinking about that, actually. When you said team of mercenaries protecting the rich people...
Yeah.
How many years would pass before the team of mercenaries just kills every rich person, steals all their stuff?
Sure.
But if it's consistent income versus a one-time thing, like they got to take that into account.
That is
like
a
if they're
thing you
getting
gotta take
paid
into
enough, then if
Here's
you've got a loyal
why-
mercenary.
In a real world scenario, the purge would not work as any government sponsored action.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Because like what you're saying, rich people who could afford it would just leave the country that day.
Yeah.
And hire people to defend their properties or whatever. And some might get stolen from. Some might still have their stuff broken into or whatever. But the real reason that this would not work is because on a purge night, so many people would go after big corporations.
Yeah.
And digitally fuck them up, that big corporations would be throwing so much money to make sure that this wouldn't happen.
Right.
Like, are you like even just people who are like manager level at big box stores and have like keys and could get in?
Oh God,
easy?
yeah. They'd just be like,
I'd
I'm
clean
going
them
back
out.
and I'm burning the place down. Like,
Right, like I don't want to go to work on Monday. I am just going to commit arson.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
do that. Not to where I work now, but we were talking about like if you worked somewhere that had really shitty customers, like I'm talking like sexual assault,
Right.
but you can't press charges shitty, because there's no evidence. If you work somewhere like that has a customer like bank like that, like has like all the
yeah.
information,
Get all their names.
like, I'm sorry, that is, if that were legal for one night, I'm doing it.
Okay, so this
Fuck
brings me to
you.
another boring purge problem. Are there a set of like discrimination laws, more or less, saying that an employer cannot fire someone based on something that they did on purge night?
It's legal.
It's legal,
Probably.
but
yeah.
But
does
you
that
also,
affect
but
a
so is
business's
being
power
pregnant, and people
to-
get fired for that all the
yeah,
time.
like, does that affect a business's power to just fire somebody? Because they will do that stuff all the time. And the state that I live in, Pennsylvania, is an at-will employment state, which means that legally, if you want to fire somebody, you don't even need a reason. You can just kick them out, and that's it. So
Yeah.
how common is it for employers to hear about things that their employees got up to on purge night and then fire them because of it?
That's why
I
you
would
wear
say-
masks.
That's
and
why you wear
things.
masks.
Yeah,
and
you wear
things.
Firstly,
masks,
that.
you take out security cameras.
Secondly, I think in the world of the purge, purging is a good thing.
They try
yeah.
to make it that way.
So so if you heard, you're at least gonna try and toe the line because you can't fire someone for purge shit because then you're gonna get labeled a purge hater.
right.
And
You
then
know?
people are
Didn't buy
going to
your-
purge harder on you
Yeah,
next
you
year.
didn't buy your blue flowers, and that shows that you don't support the purge.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it's like, I would think that much like Hawk's character in this movie, where he's like, well, no, purging is a totally good and fine thing. I just choose
Yeah.
not to do it.
If I
It's
felt
very
the
clear that
need-
he's not comfortable with the concept.
Yeah.
But
But he
that
has
he
to be.
like, it's made him a lot of money and he's trying to ride it,
Yeah.
you know? So I think it's really clear that many people are probably in the same boat as him, but they're too afraid to say anything. They would try and be like, oh yeah, I mean, like I heard you really released the beast the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that you purged and cleansed your soul.
Can you imagine how church people would be in the purge?
Jesus
speaking
Christ. Holy shit, yeah.
they would
And they,
totally like justify all their shit.
They come so close to
Mhm.
touching on that in this movie and the next. Like, they put in just enough
There's
Christian
even a scene in
nationalist
a church.
language that you know that
Mhm.
it's intended there. They do everything but stay it out right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because in the first Purge, the church is the sanctuary.
Oh.
In the fourth movie, the first Purge. I remember
but that was
much.
in the Staten Island experiment.
Of course.
Staten Island only, where they closed it off and blah, 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 because that totally would work.
Definitely, for sure.
For sure. But like, yeah, that was again, but the difference is the Staten Island church was also, I'm pretty sure, because a lot of the discussion in the first Purge is not just about classism but racism. The majority of the people in this church, and I don't remember if it was the church elders as well who we saw, were all people of color. So that does, I think, change things, because we all know that white Christians are an entirely different breed and would handle this in an entirely different way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they do touch on it in that way in that movie. Again, I still haven't seen any of the other ones. And apparently there's a TV series. Also haven't seen it.
Oh, that's right.
I heard the TV series is fine.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a concept that would work particularly well as a TV series. It's really better as a movie series, because it can be like, this is an event. This is one Purge night with these characters. You can't really do that so much with a show.
No. See, but here's the thing that Noah and I talked about.
Yeah,
when you're experimenting with different like social experiments that treat criminals in a different way to discourage crime, or that do like just any social experiment to try and discourage crime, whether it be a government thing or a vigilante thing. I was thinking about 2 or 3 specific Black Mirror episodes.
Okay.
You have White Bear. Spoiler alerts for these Black Mirror episodes, I guess. You have Black Bear, which is a story about wiping the memories of criminals and forcing them to go through terrifying scenarios related to their crimes, while being observed by a live audience who are filming them on their phones.
Different. Holy shit. When you started that, I was like, oh, this is kind of Clockwork Orangey, but then you kept going, and it's like, oh, that's different.
Yeah, no, and then at the end of the scenario, they are captured and forced to see what crime they committed that earned them this punishment, so that they understand why this is happening to them, and then they get their memories wiped and it starts all over again.
Whoa.
And the discussion there is obviously about cruel and unusual punishment.
Well, that's also literally what purgatory is in Catholicism. So that comes across to me as like a religious criticism almost. Like
there is some religious
like
iconography.
Like,
there is some religious iconography in that one. There are other ones like White Christmas, which was my favorite episode of the entire show. Yeah, with Bing Crosby. No, with John Hamm actually.
Even worse.
Even worse. But yeah, they have one way of punishing criminals in which like they have a visual blocker that they physically cannot see other people to try and like, these are all ways to try and reduce crime. And I think it's really interesting to see how in small scenarios, when we explore that stuff, like short stories where we explore that stuff, it can be so like intense and impactful. And how I think the Purge could be, the Purge to me feels like another one of those like Black Mirror episode kind of concepts where it's like, what if we made crime legal for a single night? Yeah. Wouldn't that be wacky?
What would be the social repercussions of it? Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that like if they were to do a TV series that maybe like followed a family per night, like maybe even like over different years, different people who are in different scenarios. Maybe you could do the whole like retail worker taking revenge thing. I really want to see that.
I feel like there could potentially be like an almost like Midnight Mass styled show that could follow an entire community just through a single Purge night. And it could work really good, but I really do not think most writers and most directors would be capable of doing that right.
No, and that is very true. And it's also, these movies have kind of now they have set up a formula from what I've seen, and that they are more action movies.
Very much.
Where they're more interested in that kind of aspect than they are in telling an emotionally deep story in that way.
Yeah.
Which is like, again, it's fine. It's just I think there's so much other stuff that could be done with this concept.
Yeah.
That I would love to see.
Speaking of other stuff that could be done with this concept.
Yes.
Do we want to talk about alternate Purge movies that we like, just, better movies that we think could be made on the Purge concept?
Well, yeah.
I loved the line where he's like, stuff like this doesn't happen in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
When he's talking about the integrity of the security
Things
system.
Like this aren't supposed to happen here.
I think keeping the movie this small scale.
Yeah.
Bringing it back to these things don't happen here and turning it into something like an organized band of looters, even like remove some of the social commentary from this movie. Sure. Just turn it into this is just a thing that happens, and then expand the rest of the franchise in the way that it has, where it's like, hey, so yeah, a band of looters hit a rich people's house, but did you know that if you made this legal, this is also what would happen? And then we get the second Purge movie just like it would be, because for anyone who doesn't know, the Purge and the Purge Anarchy, there is no through line other than the fact that the Purge exists and happens. There is no
the Purge
anything.
Is the through line. That's it.
Yeah. So if we turned this first movie into just, a thing where he watches his neighbors' houses get broke into, and the wife's just like, they're getting into the houses. I thought you had sold them security systems, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, well, they're not made to stand up to things like that. We could
having them watching it happen to other houses in the neighborhood could be such a good source of tension.
There's a lot of fun that you could have.
Because then it's like, oh, we've got the security system and our power hasn't been cut or anything, but it's being shown to us that the security system doesn't actually do all that much if someone's really determined.
Because then you get to still have your fun scenes of maybe we have some weird moments where it's like, well, why do you have a security camera pointed so far down the neighborhood? Blah, 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 blah. I'm just watching the street. And then you get to see his like street camera. They finally get the door open. They drag the people out. They shoot them. You get your graphic Purge imagery that you want to see, where it's. But I think the issue with the Purge, and they address this in the first Purge, the fourth movie, is that when all crime is made legal, all that happens initially, before they unleash some death squads into Staten Island, is that people are just throwing the biggest drug-fueled block party that you've ever seen.
That's the kind of crime that most real people are more interested in, I think.
You're going to break into the liquor store, you're going to break into the pharmacy,
sure, and
you're going to set up an illegal block party that blasts music all night, everyone has a rave, and then everyone goes home, and it's fine.
Yeah, that is one thing I really liked about that. I think a lot of my problem with Purge movies, the two Purge movies that I've seen, are that the characters that we're supposed to empathize with are really annoying, and I don't like them or their motivations. But the world around them is kind of more fun.
Yeah.
Because specifically in the first Purge, the fourth movie, they have that. Yeah, they literally have this setup where everyone is just kind of partying and doing their own thing, and then they send in like hired mercenary death squads to make it a murder fest because no one is murdering and it's not doing what they
like,
wanted
our
it to.
violence is way down from what we projected.
Yeah.
But then once they set the standard of it's the murder party, then people do it.
Because
people
that's
start
what you
doing
have
it
to do in order to survive.
But initially, it was just a bunch of people having a good time. If we don't focus enough on people looting in the Purge.
Yeah.
Right. It's crime is legal, even murder. Crime. And then it's just.
Yeah, like everyone's so zoomed in on the fact that murder is legal and they don't touch on anything else.
Like there's some creepy moments in this movie.
Sure.
Right? Where it's like, hey, look at how hot this guy's daughter is.
Yeah, and he says,
save her for me.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, like that. That's gross.
Yeah.
It gives a slight step back where it's like, okay, more stuff can happen on Purge night. That's not cool.
Yeah.
But they set a really good precedent in the fourth movie where it's like everyone was just partying. That's what would happen.
Yeah. I feel like
I want to see the roving band of looters that they'll kill people, but they're more out to get stuff.
Yeah.
So they're out here raiding a rich gated community because
like a
they
don't breathe
scoped
situation.
Yeah. They scoped it out. They came in. Maybe they're like oh yeah, this is Phil. He's the plumber. He goes through here. He's been in all these houses. He knows they're rich. They go.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
I would love to see a
fun.
scenario like that where the person is like defending their property and this like roving band of looters comes in and they have a bunch of guns. They're like, we're not here to murder you. Hold on. We're just here to loot.
Yeah, we're just
And
stealing
they
your
just-
shit, actually. We'd prefer not to kill you,
Yeah.
honestly.
And the people that try to make a scene, if they like cause problems, then the roving
but there's-
looters could
yeah,
maybe
then
do
it
it. That
becomes-
could
I
be a
love
fun
a scene
take.
where like these potential looters are just having a conversation with the person whose house they're looting, and because they're not going to kill the person loosens up, and they're
Yeah.
they're like, yeah,
They're like just
Like,
kind of
they're
casual
like-
about it. The looters are like, "Hey, we brought weed. Do you want some? You might as well." Like,
it's like, hey, we need this money, obviously, but we have a lot of weed.
Yeah.
This
We've
last house
acquired
had
some
so much
lately.
weed. There's no way we can smoke all of this ourselves. So you want to just hang
Yeah.
out for a sec?
Like-
And maybe they get to know the person well enough that they don't take everything. They leave some of it that is important to that person, and they keep going.
Like,
Yeah.
real world event would be a lot more like that than the murder fest that was, once again,
orchestrated.
forced and orchestrated to be
Yeah.
the way that it is.
Yeah. Okay. So,
but there's, I don't know, you know?
all right. So this leads me to a set of ideas that I had that actually kind of blend into the mundane purge problem subject, which is just when a person does something during purge time, or
Mhm.
maybe very close to the window, and they get arrested because they did something like after 7 a.m. or before 7 p.m. or something. How, in a courtroom situation, how do you go about proving that a crime was committed during the all crime is legal window? How do you go proving that it was
I
outside the
wonder-
window? I feel like there is a fantastic set of legal thrillers that could be based in this universe, just around people who committed crimes definitely during purge time, but then for whatever set of reasons they get hauled in for it and they have to prove their innocence. Not that they didn't do the crime, but they did it at a time that they were allowed to.
See,
Saul
so this
Goodman
is
voice.
really
Your Honor, my
Exactly.
client isn't saying that he didn't murder the man. However, it is important to note he did it at 6:58 a.m.
Yeah.
Which
that is a full
Your Honor,
2 minutes.
legally.
So what's
Okay.
what's interesting is when we're watching, just real quick,
Yeah.
when we're watching the opening sequence to the movie and we're seeing all these shots, they all say Purge feed on them.
Yeah.
And I wonder if like there are just like government cameras set up for specifically for that reason.
impression
So
you
that
get.
That's
like
what I was gonna say.
Okay.
yeah, is for that reason.
So let
yeah.
me pitch you an idea that me and Becca talked about. A Purge heist movie. Maybe it's a little
heist,
Ocean's
if you
11
will.
styled, just a little bit. Okay, we've got a
They
heist.
start their watch at the time and they're
We've
like,
got a
we got
heist.
12 hours.
Hold on. We've got a heist that requires so much setting up that they cannot
my
do
God.
all of it within the window. So they have to pick and choose
Okay.
what parts of the setup they do because maybe the setup itself is not strictly speaking illegal. You know, you break into a place and you go into a maintenance closet and you hide some supplies in there. You don't have to worry about not getting caught doing that because you can pretend that you just got confused looking for a bathroom. You forgot something in a closet. Is that so wrong? I ask you, gentlemen of the jury, like, is it illegal to leave something in a maintenance closet? Who cares that during the purge window, the thing that was left in the closet was used to break into this bank vault or whatever? That doesn't matter. That's not at issue here. Is it wrong to have left it in the closet for a 12-hour period?
That is a really good point.
During the
Yeah.
12-hour purge window,
Another
I
thought.
went and retrieved that
Mhm.
that mega drill from the closet or whatever, and I got into a bank vault with it and I robbed that place blind. But that was legal when I did it. Is it illegal for me to leave that drill in a maintenance closet? I say no. Just use the purge as a legal loophole to do a bunch of other shit that would not normally be possible. I think that could be really fun.
That could be.
One thing that you've kind of brought into my brain, we would have to entirely change our court system
Yeah.
because you would no longer be able to find an unbiased jury for murder cases.
never.
Or really anything.
Oh yeah.
Because they would think so much less of it because they're like, everybody's murdered. Like,
Yeah.
Or
That's a really good point.
or they would flip it harder if it's an outside purge event and be like,
Like, well, you
this
couldn't
scum
wait
of the
another
earth
month?
couldn't even wait.
Yeah.
Death penalty for everything.
It would probably loosen up the public perception of the death penalty, actually. because it's commonplace for people to just go murder whoever they want once a year. It's like, well, yeah, if this person did a crime in this abysmally low crime rate society, then like, yeah, why don't we just kill them for it?
And that's the problematic part of the Purge movies.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That's a really good point, though.
Something Noah mentioned a couple of minutes ago when you were like, talking about the group of looters and how like one of them might be a plumber and he knows what's in the houses and stuff. How much less over the course of the other 364 days of the year, how much less do you think everybody on Earth would trust people like plumbers or electricians or construction workers, people who are in your home for business reasons?
Yeah. Just regular, like, blue-collar workers who have to be in your house.
Just because they might come back on Purge night if they see something they like.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, we gotta hide all our fine jewelry. The plumber's coming over.
The same thing some people do.
Yeah, like, I know people who are legitimately like that already with an awful lot of things. But, like, for there to be an actual reason to be concerned, it's like, oh, well, this is completely different.
Every time our landlord comes over, we're like, we gotta hide everything. He's got a key to my house.
Oh, that's a good point. Landlords.
All right, so we're running out of time today.
We are.
I think Nina's gonna go and hit the notes.
Let's go.
It's Noah's notes. Okay. The first one that of Noah's notes I want to pull attention to is that Noah noticed that this movie takes place in 2022. Yep. We talked about that briefly. This movie does take place in 2022.
Yeah.
And honestly, the technology advances are really realistic. They didn't go too crazy with them.
Yeah.
I honestly find most of them pretty believable. The fact that the kid has a robot with like these VR glasses that he drives around, incredibly believable.
Yeah, they just don't look like that. That's the only difference.
That is the only difference.
Yeah, those VR glasses are a lot less clunky than our current ones. That's it.
Yeah, the Ring doorbell, totally a thing.
100%.
Like
that kind of security system, very believable.
Not unfeasible.
Oh, it was believable in 2013. It's even more believable.
Yeah.
Now.
Just the camera and monitor bank is the only different thing.
Yeah, no, it's really, you just have it on your phone instead. Can you imagine Ethan Hawke just going on his phone to look, and his kid just picks up his phone to look through the feed? That'd be so... Anyway, Noah says this opening clip fest is better than the movie. That is one of those things about small scale movies with premises like this.
Yeah.
It's like, Noah says Shitbag Hawk in Sinister versus Shitbag Hawk in The Purge. Who wins? I think that they made him, the Purge Hawk, too badass. He would kick the shit out of
Ryder Hawk.
But Ryder Hawk is a better person and I like him a lot more. He's way more likable in my opinion than this guy. Even though he's a worse dad, I would argue.
He's flawed, but Hawk. He's at least not functionally a war profiteer.
Yes.
So
I mean, he is profiting off.
He's a true crime writer. Yeah, actually, either way,
he's a true crime writer.
He's an incredibly similar character in this movie.
Maybe they are very similar people, and these movies came out a year apart.
Only a year apart. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they'd be friends.
It seems
that's
like
my
they
take.
Might be.
Or they just hate each other in very hypocritical ways.
Books.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for sure. Okay. Noah says this boyfriend is so fucking bad. The writing in this movie is abysmal.
He's awful. Yeah.
I like the idea of his character, but the way the character is written
Nothing
is maybe
about
the worst.
Him is well executed at all.
The immediate next note is about Mary having a conversation with the neighbor.
Yes, the neighbor's like, not everyone had the year you did. And Mary's like, what? And the neighbor's like, well, and then just does a whole lore dump about like the neighborhood and everything.
Yeah.
Just so that we all know for when they come back 15 minutes to the end of the movie.
We got feel like we paid for that edition on your house. Like, well, yeah, you did. You decided to. Fuck you.
You did. You bought the fucking thing. Jeez Louise. Not one carb? Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
The freaking... That was such a funny remark to make. Not a single carb. I don't know that that's a meal I think would be worth having.
The issue is, when they show us the meal a little bit better, it is just vegetables and chicken. So yeah.
Fun fact about that,
sure.
Vegetables, carb sources.
A lot of carb. But When she says not one carb, you know she meant rice or bread.
She's talking about starchy carbs. Yeah, it's just like,
yes, she is. Specific kind of carbs.
Let yourself have some pasta. It's not going to kill you.
It isn't. In fact, it might help you.
It will, probably.
Noah and I agree on this. Noah says everyone's stopping and laughing after Hawk says dormitorium really makes it look like all the actors in the scene were like, wow, this dialogue sucks ass. Because he says dormitorium, and then the daughter character snorts and goes dormitorium, and everyone laughs at him, and I love that. That's like my favorite moment in the whole movie.
It's a good interaction.
It is. I wish that that like they make fun of him for using that word, and then they have a lot of other characters use similar words unironically.
Forsooth.
Forsooth, the
dormitorium.
The dormitorium. Noah and I both said, why wait until 7 p.m. on the dot to close up the house? I would have my security system on before dinner, because they're in dinner and they're having to rush to finish so they can close the house up.
Yeah.
Close it up first, eat your dinner.
Like,
in peace.
That was something that I was thinking about when the boyfriend was like getting ready to like pretend to leave, and the daughter was all like, oh, it's an hour till purge time. You got to get home. Like, are you trying to tell me that kid's parents didn't tell him he had to be home like 3 hours before purge time just to be safe?
Literally.
Come on now.
Literally.
Nobody's being careful about this at all. The dude's out walking his dog and he's like, oh, you're fitting in one last walk, huh? Only an hour till purge time. Remember to check your system. Like, everybody would be home by then. Come on.
Literally. So maybe this is like, the anxiety talking, and the fact that like if I have something to do at 5, I'm not doing anything from 3 to 4 either.
Right. You stop doing things at 3.
I don't do anything the whole day.
I wake up,
genuinely
I do
the
nothing,
whole day.
And then 5 p.m. it's go time.
The fact that we are recording this now and I have something I'm doing at 6 is causing me distress.
Oh God, yeah.
But the point being, like, it's the purge. So yeah, I think anyone would be stressed.
Yeah.
Here we go. Noah says all the black windows from the metal grates make filming this on a set really easy, huh? Yeah. No lighting needed. Blacked out windows.
I do really like the way that they ended up playing around with using the flashlights as their lighting. Frequent listeners of this show will remember I am a slut for interesting lighting. This movie is no exception. I like what they do with the flashlights.
Yeah.
I think it's cool.
I think it's interesting. Yeah, I agree. I think it's interesting how they use the little doll as well with its red eye.
I do hate the doll, but the red eye is fun.
Yeah.
Let me get to when the purge actually starts. In reference to Zoe saying she was gonna go hide, maybe I think this is what this is.
No, she's just like, I don't know what's happening. There's people outside.
Yeah, what
I think
I'm gonna go hide.
I don't know what she's doing for literally like 80% of the movie. She just disappears.
Literally
3 different times.
We said
she just disappears.
We said it's kind of funny that we have such a big house with this new extension that she can say that she can kind of fuck off and be gone for 15 minutes of the entire movie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The whole thing of her reuniting with mom and brother and them talking, and she's like, no, my boyfriend's dead. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna go somewhere else in the house.
Yeah.
And the mom's like, no, just stay here. And she's like, no, I have to be somewhere else.
Sorry. Like,
and
what?
It's like, it's literally,
why did she have to
stupid.
be somewhere else?
Yeah.
That part's really annoying. Doing? Noah's like, we've got all the deaths of these guys. Noah says, how the hell did I not notice that the bleeding stranger is also a vet? He's
got dog tags
because he never says it out loud, but he is wearing dog tags.
That adds an extra
That's why
layer
he's
to
so
the
good with the gun at the end. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Noah says, the last minute reminder of the shitty neighbors in the opening is fucking abysmal. Ham-fisted ending where the neighbors come through, clear out fascist McFascist and his gang, then randomly get stopped by the homeless guy who has literally no reason to help them other than the kid helping him. What a mess.
Yeah.
What the fuck is this ending? I hate this movie.
Also, I hate that we get like a series of action sequences with Ethan Hawke just killing everyone in his path, no trouble, and then Mary just like gets overwhelmed immediately and needs to be rescued. I found that very frustrating.
Yeah. No, that was really frustrating as well. Like immediately, like no one else is capable. Why would Ethan Hawke be more capable than anyone else in this family?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It makes sense that the bleeding stranger is capable, not Ethan Hawke. I made that remark to Noah as well. Anyway, that's it for Noah's notes. I feel like we have complained and also praised where it was due this movie to its extent.
There's a handful of
apologies for rushing the ending here a little bit. Yeah. We do have a deadline we had to finish by, which is in 3 minutes. So we're wrapping it up.
Yeah.
Our next movie will be It Chapter 1 from 2017.
This has been Hawkboy Summer. Thank you for joining us on this journey. I have been Nina Wolverina, Ethan Hawke stan, and also artist. You can find my work on Twitter at Nina Wolverina.
You draw for Ethan Hawke?
Oh my god.
I wish I did.
You need to draw Ethan Hawke.
I do. I will at some point.
Nina's just like, I don't see enough Grabber fan art on Tumblr and isn't fixing the problem.
Don't get me started right now on the Tumblr Black Phone fandom. It's literally disgusting.
Oh,
but
no.
yeah, anyway, that's me. Maybe I'll draw them him at some point.
And I'm Noah. You can find me as Bubba the Bad, BUBBADABAD. Twitch, Twitter, and Insta on all of those places. Come hang out or something.
And I'm Emma, also known as Emma Panada. You can find me on Twitch and Twitter at Emma Panada. On Twitch, I have a couple D&D games going. On Twitter, I largely shitpost and troll my friends. I'm also writing a TTRPG called All the Witches. You can find information about that at allthewitches_ on Twitter. By the time this comes out, I will have announced the Kickstarter date. Woo-hoo. So go look at that.
Oh yeah.
Very exciting.
And I am Jeff. You can find me on Twitter at BubbaWubbadab.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. Well, we're so excited to watch
It Chapter 1 from 2017.
Next time.
Very excited.
Really looking forward to it. But yeah, until then, we'll see you later. Goodbye.
Bye.